Senator Barrasso, you have something?
Yeah, thanks. I do, Mr. Chairman. So just following up with what Senator Mash was talking about leasing, I want to talk a little bit about permits. Because 2 weeks ago, you testified, when you were testifying in the House, that your department is, quote, committed to moving the applications for permits to drill, to move them forward as expeditiously as possible. And you said, and we have done that since I've been in this position. That was your testimony. I'm going to just point to a chart here. According to the Bureau of Land Management's official data, your department, the time it takes to get an oil and gas permit has actually doubled under your leadership. In 2020, the average time was 130 days. In 2022, the average wait has doubled to 271 days. So my question is, why are you slow-walking permits and then intentionally misleading Congress and the public when you're caught?
Thank you for the question, Senator. And of course, I see this graph in front of me, and there are a lot of factors that go into an application for a permit to drill. I don't process personally those applications. There's career staff who are dedicated public servants who do that. I think that number depends largely on how many applications there are at a time. Oftentimes, the career staff will contact the applicant to get further information, and they don't respond in a timely manner. There's any number of issues that happen because each application for permit to drill is separate and apart from the other one. So they look at each application separately, they process them separately, and I can say that they have told me that oftentimes they ask for further information from the applicant. They don't get it in a timely manner. That adds to the delays.
Well, your budget's been increased, and I don't think many people who are listening here believe that it's the companies who need these permits are slow-walking the information back to you. Mr. Boudreaux, may I ask you to comment on this as well?
Yeah, I think there are a number of factors. In addition to what the Secretary described, we can't get around the fact that litigation plays a role. And that is why we're committed to a thorough and rigorous and defensible process as we go through leasing and permitting process. Because, as you know, if you really want to throw something off the rails, litigation's the way you do it.
Great. Well, let me go back to the Secretary. Thank you. And I'm going to follow up on the litigation, but with the Secretary, because last month I sent a letter to you along with Senator Lummis from Wyoming and Representative Hageman about a lawsuit, about litigation that has been filed against an oil and gas leases and permits in Wyoming, in my home state. And I have a copy of the letter that I sent to you. The lawsuit targets leases and permits that were issued under your authority over the last 2 years. Will you commit to fully defending your own department's decisions to issue these leases and permits in court? Will you commit to fully defending these?
Thank you very much for the question, Senator. Of course, our solicitors department, they are the lawyers. They look at these lawsuits. I'm happy to get with the solicitors department to figure out where these are. I couldn't tell you where they are at the moment in their review.
Yeah, because these are at least you've come out with, and I would expect you and your department to fully defend the lawsuits, defending what your own action here. In terms of coal leasing, last year a court reimposed the department's moratorium going back to 2016 on new thermal coal leasing pending the completion of environmental review of the coal leasing program. Last week, your department announced that it has started the environmental review. Do you have any intention to ever resume coal leasing on federal lands?
Senator, I appreciate the question very much. I know that last week the BLM initiated the remedial environmental analysis of potential effects of maintaining the coal leasing moratorium. That is a process that's ongoing. And of course, we're committed to working with all leasing applicants, including folks who are in this industry. And I believe that the moratorium does not apply to metallurgical coal.
Well, okay. There are a number of times today you say your goal is to follow the law. The purpose of the Mineral Leasing Act is to promote the mining of coal on the public domain. And do you believe that an indefinite moratorium on coal leasing is consistent with the federal law?
Senator, I understand your concern, and I'm happy to look at this issue. I don't.
Okay, thank you. And then finally, and Mr. Chairman, I'm going to submit this to the record. In one of my earlier questions, I was talking about specific rare earth minerals, things that are needed, all minerals for electric vehicles, and talked about cobalt extensively. You had mentioned in your response that you looked at a mine and it had to do more with copper. I do have with me the BLM, your Bureau of Land Management's National NEPA Register, and the issues related to that mine, and it's very clearly stated that it was underground copper and nickel and cobalt, all of which I mentioned as critical minerals needed for electric vehicles that will be needed much, much more to try to meet the administration's goals, and for which right now we are very dependent on international sources, some of which are mined in ways that we would find very much against the values of the United States. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.